Well, Scott, I don't know if anybody listening this morning cares a heck about bots right now. All they're doing is counting their money. They're just,
Hmm.
you know, trying to figure out how much they've made this week on Tesla stock and how much more they might make. Yeah. All right. So we're very anxious to see what Tesla is going to show us next. We'd appreciate it, Tesla, if we understand that, you're probably trying to keep some stuff back because you don't want the competition to know. But my number one thing continues to be, I don't care if it goes faster. I don't care if it can tie its shoes or
Mhm.
flip hamburgers. What I really care about is I want it to have a voice. I
Oh,
want a
okay. And we
voice.
know it's going to have a voice.
We know it's
It
going
will have
to.
a
I
voice,
want to hear its
but I
voice.
think there's something you care a bit more because
Even more. Okay.
there are some people that are starting to look at it. So like the price action of Tesla has moved quite a bit the past couple of days. And
Yeah,
the
duh.
question is, what is it? And I think it was over the weekend, people probably digesting the report from Adam Jonas, where they actually said, you better start putting the humanoid bots, on your Excel sheets, add a tab for that.
Yeah, right.
And so a lot of people think it might also be, robotaxi, but that's kind of been out there. And, maybe people slowly deciding to get in ahead of the 8.8 event. But, part of it could be that. And the thing is what's going to be the thing that really causes the next huge breakout of it? And, you were talking about like the orders and something like that. And Herbert and I had a little bit of discussion. Again, this is not investment advice or anything like that. But what seems to me is that people aren't taking these humanoid bots seriously. And it's like, okay, great, it can do backflips. Like you say, buy its shoe. I don't care about that. But when you end up getting a video drop from Tesla that shows a dozen of them working an actual line in Tesla and with no hiccups, clearly doing what workers used to do, then I think suddenly everyone wakes up and that becomes like this catalyst that will just cause this frenzy. So think about it from your standpoint. If you were able to see that, wouldn't you be like, oh, I should have bought yesterday, kind of thing.
Okay.
We better get in right now before it's too late.
So again, you're misunderstanding me, okay? Because you and I had this conversation. Maybe the very first show that we ever did together is that the very first time I saw the bot.
Yeah.
In it,
that was it for you. Yeah, immediately. But I'm just talking about,
But even so,
the zeitgeist and everything is just like, oh, it's still a fantasy. No one really believes it's going to happen. The robots are too slow. They're going to be too expensive. They're going to be this, that, else.
I'm 100.
When that first one gets out, and the thing is, it may not even have to be Tesla. Some other company shows something like that. Everyone's going to suddenly go, oh my God, this technology is really here. Where's our place? And they'll look around and go, oh, they're all private companies. So
Scott, I'm just going to tell you, go back and listen to my video this morning. I'm just pulling it up right here. I'm pulling up my script. Number 9, at least a dozen Optimi working at human speeds at various tasks in factory.
There we have it. We think exactly the same. And we did not discuss that in the green room or anything like that before. So again, that's what I'm feeling is that, and they're showing us little snippets of that and people are getting a little bit excited, but they're still saying, it's not quite it. So when you see that, wow, I mean for me, I'm really excited when I see that.
But it has to talk.
It has to talk.
It has to talk.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's getting warm out there. Isn't it getting warm out in California right now? You need to get your walk in before you get baked.
No, I got my walk in early because it's already 80.
Okay.
It's 9:30 and it is 83 at 9:30. Yeah, at 9:30. Yeah, it's gonna be 100.
That's what it's like here at midnight.
Well, I know you guys have humidity. We don't have something. God forgot to put humidity in California, so we don't get that 100 degrees at night thing. And I'm in the quasi desert, so it cools off at night all the way down usually to 75 or something like that. So, but no, 100 degrees for the next 10 days, and 105, 106, 107.
Wow. And Alexander told me that usually it's cool up in San Luis Obispo. Is that right?
Oh yeah, San Luis Obispo is right on the ocean. So, and she lives in Santa Barbara. I used to live in Santa Monica. No. it was never above 80 where I lived in Santa Monica. It was 80. 80 was like you're dying. It's like,
Yeah, we've had some warm temperatures. I mean, the funny thing is Florida actually been a bit cooler than the rest of the country.
Wow, look at you
All
guys.
those people that headed north, they cool off. It's like, we're down here. It's like 100 up in Michigan and everything else. And like, we're not seeing those temperatures. We're seeing in the 80s, the dip down to 70s overnight. Last night actually was a little bit better because it was a nice clear night. So all the heat was able to radiate away.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Love it.
You want to switch to robotics?
All right. Let's talk about robotics. So
yeah.
One of the things I want to bring up to you real quick is I put this out last night to for the first time to anybody, to Nick, Nicholas Gibbs. And we had a discussion back and forth about it. I am now claiming, and I'm going to continue to claim, that the number one catalyst that Tesla or any company has ever had in history is going to come within the next 18 months. And that will be an announcement by some company that they have placed an order with Tesla for at least 1,000 and maybe 10,000 bots. So it could be a Pepsi, it could be an Amazon, it could be a Boeing, but some outside company. And so as we discussed that back and forth, he said, I believe, so I kept telling him, if I was a company like that, in fact, if I was even a small company, I wouldn't be waiting for the announcement. I wouldn't be waiting for something on the website that says I can order. I would be on the phone. I'd be with my friends. I'd be trying to find a way to get to the front of the line and get those bots as, to be first. And he said, he finally, at the end of the discussion, he says, I'm sure, he said, I feel confident that there are people right now that have already told Elon, I want 1,000, or I want 10,000, or I want 5,000, that there was probably a very long list of companies that are just waiting for this to pop. So what do you think about that theory?
I think there's probably a certain degree of validity in it. And just because the interest we're seeing from everywhere. So remember the Adam Jonas note from last week, sort of showed the companies that are working on the bots, but more importantly, the companies that are interested in it. You see like, Amazon, Magna,
right.
BMW, Merced, they're all these big household names that are doing it that have already elbowed their way to the front of the line. And of course, other things that Brett had pointed out that, well over 100 Fortune 500 companies, already were approaching them privately. And, they're approaching all the others. They're all looking at it very closely. Even some smaller players that you never heard of that now that, we want to follow really closely, like GXO that does the Spanx deliveries of that and a lot of other logistics. Their name is suddenly popping up in this space. Yeah. And they're working with at least 2 different humanoid bot companies. Okay. So it's like, wow, that, this is rather interesting that a lot of them are seeing that there's huge potential there. And so it would not surprise me. The question is whether they're going to figure out how to ration these things, because you just can't have someone coming up there like an Amazon and say, we'll take the first 100,000. It's almost going to be like, well, we got to be a bit fair about it, and we'll sell them maybe in lots of this and that. And it's sort of like the Cybertruck, is that if you missed your opportunity, you had to wait pretty long. But in the end, there were a lot of people with orders of like 100. They're like, well, we'll just take one right now. We want to wait another 18 months before that comes in there. So I think there's a certain amount of validity that there's at least the talks going on if the contracts have not been signed.
And I've been in that rationing situation as a manufacturer. The tire liners that I'm still selling 40 years later, when we first introduced those, they were so hot that we couldn't make them fast enough, and we had to ration them among the various distributors.
Like Cabbage Patch dolls,
yeah. We had and so you do have to because you don't want to ruin the relationship going forward. With somebody that you've already been doing a lot of business with. Let's take Pepsi, who has been such a great partner in the semi-truck situation. You don't want, if they come in and say, we want 10,000 and you just promised Microsoft 500 or 100,000, that means Pepsi doesn't get them until 2027. You got to find a way to.
You're good to do it right. And even Brett Adcock pointed out that, they had to say no to a lot of companies. It's like, it was really hard, but everyone knows that when you're a startup, the one word you need to learn to say more than anything else is no. Yeah. It's like to your employees, it's always, yes, we can. Yes, we can. But to the, all these different companies that want to buy stuff from you, if you're not ready, you don't want to, that could really sour the relationship bad reputation. So you got to start small. The other thing to remember is that sometimes these orders may be out there. The question is when you can literally deliver. And didn't Amazon have like a huge order with Rivian for the delivery vans, and then they said, we don't need something.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful that you try to scale up around that, and they suddenly pull the rug out from underneath you.
Yeah, and that's of course Nvidia right now is of course in the opposite situation.
Yeah.
Forcing people to pay.
Well, then the other thing to remember is that that is a problem. That if you decide to not take your order from Nvidia, it's going somewhere else, and you're going to end up in the back of the queue. And so you got to remember that
pay for it.
Exactly. See, Tesla was not ready for the delivery of those things because the delivery center's not right. And I pointed this thing out is like, if you're a grocer and you put together a supply contract with a local dairy to deliver milk, and you say you can start delivering on a particular date, but it turns out that your refrigeration units aren't ready, are you going to take the order? No, you're not. You've got to have a place to be able to put it. And then of course, you're afraid that, well, then they're going to supply something else, but maybe you own like another grocery chain and you can say, just send the milk over there. And then the one that's supposed to go to them in 2 weeks, whoop, you can come around here and we get that. And that's basically what's going on is fortunately you had xAI and Tesla doing it. And rather than being this, like, we're going to steal the chips from you. It's like, no, we're in a friendly relationship here. That's got to go there first because those guys are ready. We're not. And when we're ready, we get it. And the other thing is that even if you literally could just put them in a warehouse, which you can, because it's not milk that's going to be spoiled, and you're not going to be ready to turn them on for 6 months. Aren't you paying a certain amount of money for that stuff? That just kills the balance sheet. It's like, it's sitting around being unused. Billions of dollars of unused capital. So it's just like this is the tricky thing when it's basically a seller's market, right?
Yeah.
That they can command and say, you're not ready. Well, the queue's 36 months long. Come back when you're ready.
Yeah. So that's my theory. And my theory is at some point, Tesla is going to make an announcement, or one of the companies will make an announcement. And when that announcement is made, it's got to be not for 10, not for 50, not for a test. It's got to be for units, major number of units. And that will be a huge catalyst.
And it could be that they're already in place because Elon has said a couple of times that they'll be ready to sell them by the by next year, by the end of next year. And that was like a bolt out of the blue. It's like, what? Wait a minute. I wasn't expecting that so soon. So it may be that they already have discussions going on with various companies that are thinking that. That's what I would think. Yeah.
Well, you said you had some news. So what's the news? What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, let's see if we can go ahead and do a little screen share. All right. So we're going to go back in time here just a little bit.
Back in time. Okay.
Back in time to the 20th of June. Right. And this post came out where Brett is showing that they're getting ready to ship some humanoid bots. And I think we talked about this earlier.
We did.
First the bot's missing.
Yes.
Right. And also that they don't mention the client. They say the client. It's like, well, wait a minute. We know about BMW, so we think that they would actually be sending it to BMW. That might be one of them. But they have hinted that there being another company. They just don't want it public about who that company is yet. Okay, so we get this post, and then what's it? Oh, like just a couple of days ago, Figure releases this video showing the Figure 1 bot. Not a new one, actually picking up some of these sheet metal parts to go ahead and put it into a fixture station at P&O. So this is a prototype because you don't see plants in a plant. Okay, so clearly this is a workstation area, and this is a mock-up that they have local, and that's common for like all new advanced automation doing in there. You want to have it close to where the engineers are, but they're taking real parts and they're taking like the real I guess you could say fixtures, but not the clamps, because you never see the clamps come down there and doing the demonstration of that. So you can take a look at that video because every time I try doing it on here, it gets complicated. So the main thing is that, when I first saw the video and them going through and loading these parts in, I said, hey, this is a low hanging fruit I've been telling you all about. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
And for those who want to know, it basically was this, which I did, I think almost 2 years ago, I made this, and I reminded everyone back in October 6, 2022, the reason for this, because a few days before, this is what Elon said, start Optimus with very simple tasks in the factory. loading a part into one of our more conventional robot cells that welds the body together.
Yeah.
Okay, that's basically what's going on here. That's basically what Figure is doing. So this is a kind of low-hanging fruit. And the thing is, it's not like it's one piece of low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of these out there. So once you're able to get one of these, there's many others that are very, very, very similar. So we're not talking about, oh, we nailed it for one bot, we won't be able to do anything. If you're really able to get the bot to do that particular case, it's going to work out well. Now, there's still a lot of things they have to do. Is that in this particular video that I have here, you'll see over here are these pallets that with what we call dunnage on there. And usually the material is stacked up in it. And it may be that it's like nested on top of each other or just kind of thrown in there in sort of arbitrary orientations. And here you're going to notice that they already have like a special, let's see, I think it was like right here. They've got a stand there that, this would stay still. There. Okay, they've got a stand that it's holding on. And basically serving it up in almost the same location each time.
Right.
And you don't have like one on top of the other where you have to figure out how to get your fingers underneath, especially when it's nested in there. But you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And the most important thing is like over at the end when they drop it in, that they have these tooling pins that you don't have to be that accurate. That's the whole idea. You don't have to be that accurate. That's why I said it's low-hanging fruit. You get, and they say it's like the precision they need with the big piece is like less than 3 centimeters.
Okay.
And because you get over there and you drop it in, and the tooling pins will just let everything kind of slide right into place. And the other one just was like, has to be within about 1 centimeter, and it corrects the position when it's a little bit off to make sure it's like, oh, it didn't quite fit right. Drop it down there till it's right. It looks right. And then normally, then these clamps come down. Yeah. And then the clamps will lock it right into the correct location after that point. Sure. So it's designed for humans because, the humans aren't going to be that precise, everything that's in there. So you end up getting a very precise operation in the end, but because of all the other external engineering. So that's why it's, it's made for these kind of robots.
Yeah. But, Scott, you and I have been talking about this since practically the very beginning that you were on this show, is that just in the businesses, the manufacturing businesses that I was, very closely identified with, manufacturing water bottles, are printing T-shirts, are making clay sconces. All of these small factories have tons of these kind of jobs where you're doing nothing more than picking up the finished product and putting it in a box. Or you're picking up the
those are very simple, very, 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 very simple. And we're already seeing examples of other humanoid bots trying to do something very similar.
Right.
And in fact, what Optimus is doing right now is almost the same thing. You're just picking the batteries off the line and then dropping them in, doing something very simple.
Yeah. Now, so Scott, here's my my question around that. Okay, which has been on my mind for the last couple of days. Also, with regard to the consumer out there, the person that is, sitting on the sidelines, hasn't worked that much in a factory, doesn't really know that much about it. Looking at the most recent video that you were just referring to, it's still clunky. It's still jittery.
Yeah.
It's still
we're getting to that. This is where the news starts to get a little bit more exciting here. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to point out is today there was also some news coming out of Sanctuary that Herbert I covered, and when you see Herbert's video, to be really interesting. At one point in there, we have a snippet of an interview we did with Jordy Rose, who's the CEO of Sanctuary, talking about this idea of pilot plants and the customers and everything else. It's a very interesting soundbite. I kind of forgot about it, but he really talks about how all these companies that want this are very patient. That they know it's going to be problematic at the beginning, but they still want to be at the beginning of the queue, just like you're saying. They're making these big orders. So that's the good thing, is that they all are willing to put in whatever sweat equity has to go in to help these other companies get to there. And they know there's going to be failings along the way, because that's typically how it is. So again, pretty interesting soundbite. So if we go on here, what Brett has been talking about is that, they are basically, I'm trying to think if I had like one. Okay. What I really wanted to point out here is that from Rebellionaire colleague Luca Greco, who is based on his last name, sounds like he could be a Greek living in Italy. Okay. He lives in Italy, and he does a lot of stuff on the gigacasting. He follows that really well. So if you want to know anything about gigacasting, go ahead and follow, give Luca a follow. The main reason I point this out is he brought this to my attention before I had a chance to see it. And that is, I was a little bit disappointed when I looked at a BMW video. It's like, oh, so they were shipping the bots to BMW and not someone else, and it's just figure one. Well, it turns out that was figure one's final run, the last hurrah. So that means there is a figure two coming. They're getting ready for it. And so so he pointed it out and did a little bit of the humble brag for me to say that, basically, I was predicting it was going to, and it looks like that's what the case is going to be. So, here's the final run. The purpose is to validate the engineering architecture and moving ahead. And then some more news. And so basically, this is what they want to focus on. So we talked about it not, being very clunky. So they want to focus on, speeding up the robots during the use cases, because till now they didn't care about that. The AI is the important part. And that's been pointed out many, many, many times. And if you read this really closely, it sounds an awful lot like Elon's 5 principles that they have there, the algorithm, like don't optimize early kind of thing. So it's more like, look, the requirements are getting the AI to work. It's not necessarily make sure this thing is fast. That's something that we can optimize and take care of later. Really finding the boundaries of what's going on, obviously seeing whether it can run continuously. So, they're probably running it to the breaking point. But here's an interesting point, higher rate manufacturing, robots are coming. So it sounds like they probably got, a second generation design, which is a lot easier for them to be able to manufacture. And right now, it doesn't mean they've scaled up. It means they probably are able to produce these at a slightly higher volume than they are now.
Right.
And I think what this does is this makes things really interesting overall. That they've been kind of silent because they've been very busy in the background. Tesla has been a little bit silent, and I would say very silent, because since the shareholder meeting, we had we saw that there were 2 bots that was mentioned, 2 bots down the floor.
Yes.
And then like right after that, Julian Ebrard says, how soon before do you think we have 10?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, wait a minute, that's coming from one of the guys inside the team that are usually very mum about anything. So it's like, okay, you've already got them scoped out. You're probably already doing it. So I am expecting very soon to probably see a video coming from Figure showing figure 1 bot doing that task and showing the figure 2.
I
so
see.
You can contrast how different they are. Probably around the same time, you're going to see Optimus doing almost the same thing, because the thing I don't like about the battery one is that Optimus doesn't really need to use its legs. It's basically standing there the whole time, just doing a very simple pick and place. But this particular operation of picking up the sheet metal and bringing it over and dropping it off, that requires you to move and to get out of the way of the safety fencing and everything else that drops down at the end of it. So their movement is needed, and that's the one that will kind of show off what Optimus really can do at that point. So I think there are exciting days coming here, and all the teams are pushing each other for sure.
Yeah, and I tried to differentiate this morning on a video that I did between the consumer, the outsider who's watching this, believing in the bot, believing it's a real thing. I think they need to see it operating smoothly in kind of a human-like pace. Smoothly and at a pace. But at the same time, just tell me if I'm wrong, from a robotic standpoint, from a factory standpoint, it doesn't really matter if it can do the job. Even if it's slow, the only time it's going to matter whether it's slow or not is if it can't keep up with the line.
Exactly.
If it can't keep up with the line, you can put 2 bots in if necessary in order to keep up with the line.
Again,
so the reality is we want the speed, because it would be smarter and better over time for it to be as quick as an existing.
And it will. And it will. So what's happening is the multipliers are just going to get crazy.
Right.
So I assume you're having CERN on your show maybe tomorrow, but tomorrow is
maybe tomorrow.
July, so
yes, he
maybe
will.
tomorrow, or maybe you're recording today. So he
will be on tomorrow.
And we'll actually be seeing each other in real life again this evening to a 4th of July event. And now I lost my train of thought there. Okay. So,
what is CERN going to tell us tomorrow?
No, it's more or less the as far as the speed. So right now, if you look at some of the previous videos that we've seen of Tesla manufacturing, where the operator was loading the small sheet metal parts, he was responsible for 2 stations.
Right.
And he had a lot of time where he was just kind of standing there waiting for one or the other to get ready, and then move, do that operation back. And if you look at a lot of these cells that require human labor, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of time the human's doing nothing.
Right.
And it has to be built in. So you cannot give it something where they have 85% utilization. That's like too high at that point. And anything above that, you cannot run them ragged like that. So there has to be a little bit of a break. So you notice that, they always have a chance to catch their breath a little bit. And so but they could obviously do that much slower. They don't have to be that quick. The reason they're quick is because they want to take a short break. They're capable of doing it, doesn't require a whole lot of extra energy, be just a little bit faster. Obviously, if you're sprinting, it does. So everyone finds the natural pace is going. Humanoid bot, it's the same thing. And you're right. So long as, because it's a machine, if it's able to consistently do it at the right time, and if it gets it done just, under the wire, that's good enough.
Yes.
So long as it doesn't impact the line. Now, again, we're talking about those, one worker was responsible for 2 stations. So within that 45 seconds, they had more than enough time to be able to load 4 different pieces on 2 different stations.
Yes.
No problem. So all you have to say is, well, if that's the case, then the 2 robots can work next to each other without getting each other's way. Literally, it was like they were next to each other, and so that would work. Then eventually that robot gets a little bit faster, right? And then the robot can do that station completely. So you go from the robot is only half a human, the robot is 1 human. And then maybe the robot is 1.5 human.
Right.
And so now you're looking at, wow, quite, and then you take, it's 1.5 humans, and then multiply by CERN's figure that a robot will be worth like 2.5 robots. That's when it's 2.5 workers because of all the shifts it can do. Potentially more. I mean, you could, if you're running a 4-shift operation, you could say it's almost 4, right? Because it's doing all 4 of those shifts. But conservatively saying it's like 2.5, and then it's like, yeah, but if it's able to do twice the jobs, because twice, suddenly it's like equal to 5.
Yeah.
And that's where the numbers get pretty nutty. And this is, I know, a very cliche term, but we hear it said again and again and again. That is, the humanoid bots are the worst they will ever be.
Yes.
They're
and
very negative way of saying that they're only going to get better.
Yeah, and CERN and I, a few months ago, he and I started like upping each other every week. We were coming up with all of the ways that the bot was actually superhuman already, that was not being taken into consideration in the cost per hour formula. And one of the ones that I thought was particularly interesting was, if you got 5 employees doing the same job, you've got one that operates at half robot speed. You've got one that, or half human speed, one that operates, 3 that operate at human speed, and 1 that operates at 1.5 human speed. I don't care what the job is, you're going to have some people that do it faster and some people that do it slower. They just don't have the skills. They don't have the energy, whatever it is. They don't have the desire. They're not trying to get ahead, whatever it is. But I don't care. Everything from sales to putting caps on water bottles, you're going to have that skill set range. But with robots, everyone is identical in skill set. And so that changes everything about the way you set up your line, because now 100% what that robot is going to do every single time, as opposed to trying to jigger between the different skill sets of the humans.
Yep. Now, I think probably when CERN comes on your show, which is either today or tomorrow, whenever
tomorrow.
The recording is. That's right. He's Canadian. He doesn't care about the 4th of July. He had his holiday on Monday, Canada Day. He's
New Zealander.
That's right. So he doesn't care about either. That means he was working all those days. That's right. He's a Kiwi. What he will probably point out is the fact that a bunch of his posts got Elon's attention.
Yes.
And not just like really detailed kind of correspondence back and forth between the 2. Now, why he doesn't follow CERN at this point, I haven't quite figured out yet.
He follows Warren.
Yeah. But that was rather interesting, because basically CERN called Elon out for his numbers not being nutty enough. CERN can fill you in on the details.
No.
It was a pretty hilarious kind of exchange, because, as you know, CERN CERN never, he rarely just puts out like a one-line post.
No.
His posts are articles, they're detailed or something like that. And it gets enough attention, and some people begin to realize, hey, there's some real analysis here. It's not just some guy being a joker like me with dad jokes that people like, all right, let's not listen to him anymore. So yeah, that should be pretty interesting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to also being cross-examine CERN tonight. Yeah, and I've been counting the opposite way and how much money I've been spending on Starlink peripherals of late. So
I see.
I to get into that, but as you know, they shipped out like a new version of the Starlink dish.
Yeah, the mini.
Yeah, and mine finally arrived yesterday, and it's right here.
Okay.
Oh no, wait, that's the cardboard that covers. Where'd it go? I think it's here somewhere. I'll go.
That's okay. This is a magic trick, Scott.
Yeah, so here we go.
That's the
finally
box.
came in. Yep, finally came in, and somewhere in here, in the box, that's what the dish looks like.
That's what the dish looks like. Okay.
Yep.
Like
So
a big computer.
That's the dish, and compare it to a piece of paper that I've been drawing all kinds of things on. You get kind of an idea.
Yeah.
Of it's a little bit bigger than a piece of paper, but about the same size. Pretty okay.
Yeah.
It's got a kickstand, no mount. If you want, comes with an exchangeable mount, so you can put it up on a pole.
I see.
But the important thing is like the Wi-Fi is built in, so there's
Right.
no Wi-Fi router.
Right.
So it's the dish and the Wi-Fi router, which means the power pack is much easier. You just have this thing here, which I think is called a wall wart or something like that, that you just plug in. That's your little power pack. But you see, there's no wires there, because it comes with this, and this is much thinner than anyone that said the previous cable, because this is not power over Ethernet. It's just power.
Yes.
You don't need the Ethernet
Right.
anymore to come
Right.
back to your router. So
Right.
it's right there, and it has these barrel jacks in there. And if you look kind of closely on there, you'll see that it's got all these seals in there, which gives it like IP56 protection, so it can be accidentally submerged and it'll be fine. And so the place in the back here that you'd stick the barrel jack in, and you put this in your wall. Now, if you want to take this on the move, obviously you would just need an inverter or your Tesla to do that, or you can do something else. And I just got like a 10-foot section of a 12-volt to barrel jack, and you can do that. So you can go straight into your 12-volt cigarette lighter, unless of course you have the Cybertruck, in which case this is perfectly good because you actually have an outlet.
Right. Of course. Yes.
So that means to be portable with it, it's very, very easy. You don't even need to bring this with you.
Yeah.
All you need to do is bring this and then the other extension, and you're ready to go. Now, we had a really good Spaces on last Sunday. Went about 6 hours. Andre Borgin and myself just talking about Starlink. Just wanted to talk about how the architecture and everything worked. We had a couple pretty good guests come on there. At the end, we had 𝐒𝐚𝐢. He wrote an article in Medium about 2 years ago. Really gave good details about how the whole thing works, and he's got a website where he simulates what's going on, and he's just like a font of information when it comes to how it works, what the technology is, what's going on. And so he joined us, I think, like maybe the last 2 hours, and it was just mind-blowing. But what we decided to do is kind of reprise that, and I'm going to do it again this Sunday.
Oh,
A
okay.
little bit earlier. So I know it's the 4th of July weekend, but a lot of you might be driving home around 3 p.m. Eastern time. Just jump into Spaces. It's going to be pretty interesting. So we're going to have a couple other special guests there as well, and a couple other fun announcements and everything else. Kind of talk about it. What we're really going to be talking about is how you would be able to implement Starlink in the third world. Because it's not quite as simple as we thought. It's not just like, well, the satellites are flying overhead, so they could just be able to do this. Like, well, there's a little bit more involved to it. So from the economics, so it'll be really interesting that way. And the other thing, Randy, is I hope you're coming up to the X Takeover end of this month
In San Luis Obispo.
in St. Louis Obispo. We've been very close. It's not that far for you. You can make it up. I know it's going to be like super crowded. There's all these other people, all these luminaries there, but I'm sure you'll stand out. And,
I'll just wear my shirts,
finally get a chance. Yeah, actually, that looks like a Kandinsky to me, almost. Reminds me very much of it. We've talked about that before. It's a pretty wild shirt, but yeah. So that's what's going on. And now, I mean, I don't know, any other questions about about this thing here?
No, I think it's absolutely fascinating. And, I keep pointing out to people that they go back and look at the Elon Musk mission where Brian Wang spent, pages and pages and pages outlining exactly what was going to happen and exactly what has happened.
Yeah.
We even speculated, I think, in the book that this was never, well, that maybe Elon really honestly thought that this was always going to just be for remote locations where you can't get good service, but that essentially it looks like he's going to.
It doesn't have to be remote. In many cases, semi-remote is good enough. I mean,
Yeah,
I am not remote
right.
yet. It's better. If you go to my timeline, you will see what the cabling network looks like around my neighborhood. And it's all literally on the street. There is one that I am driving over every day, along with the garbage truck and the delivery vehicles and everything else. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And like one neighbor who's finally had it. I mean, he said the service has been so bad. He's had so many problems that's it. He's decided to finally cut the cord and do something different.
Yeah.
So, some people are just saying that, the 5G is like almost better than what they have on the ground. Now, this isn't the case for everyone. If you live in a big urban center,
Sure.
you will get stuff pretty good. But it's surprising the number of people that think they are living in a civilized part of the country, and they have like really, really bad.
And this is particularly true in industrial settings.
Yes.
Small business part. Horrible. Yeah.
In these spaces, I met a lot of people that just said that, they tried to do some things remotely, and, because they couldn't get it, it was extremely difficult, and they could not work remotely like they needed to because they expected to have decent broadband. And sometimes it's a difference of like 100 meters.
Yeah.
It's like something expands and suddenly they're not there, or they don't want to run the services out there. They don't have the services. So a lot of people, they move into these areas assuming they've got good cable, and they find out they don't. That's, John Gibbs, he lives in Athens. He lives really, he's a professor at a university, very close.
Yeah.
And he's just like a couple hundred yards from something decent. And it's terrible for him. He still has like the local provider there, but Starlink is his go-to because it's actually better. And so I think it may have even surprised people at Starlink how good it is and how successful it is.
Maybe.
Which, they've reached profitability, I think, a little bit sooner than expected because the way it's working. Yeah, absolutely no doubt about it. And then like one final note is like there was like an early morning launch today, and it was like, just actually perfect skies. And I was up there this morning, and the launch window was between 2 and 5:58 or something like that. And so I was assuming it's gonna be 2. I was up there, and then the window kept slipping and slipping and slipping, and then it was like, it's going to be at 4:48. So I said, I got to get a couple hours sleep. So I set my alarm, and sure enough, it's just like I always have that nightmare that the alarm won't go off. I woke up on my own 4 minutes after the launch.
Oh man!
So I just completely missed the launch. I had everything set up, and I was feeling really, really bad. And then a friend of mine that lives over on the east side. She has a farm there, and she just happened to be up and heard about it. And then she said that it went north, and I'm like, what?
Oh,
because it would have been out of frame.
Oh,
so it was just, so I went from like being really angry that I missed it to like, I would have missed it even if I was up, because it wasn't taking the normal southerly route that they always do. Yeah. And I think part of the reason is that they said that on this one are 13 direct to cell satellites. I think the only direct to cell satellites have been coming out of Vandenberg. The reason they're coming out of Vandenberg is that those are the ones that are creating the polar orbit on that particular shell. Because that makes more sense to be able to try to get that coverage really quick. Now, polar orbit from the Cape, it can be done, but you have to fly over Cuba, and they don't like that idea. Okay. They did it once. I mean, you got to do a weird dog leg to kind of avoid that. Going north is a bit crazy too. I mean, you can go up the coast, but you really have to literally go over like the Carolinas and stuff like that to get what you want, unless they have a certain inclination. And I'm not sure if it was one of those that, looking at the weather and which shell they go in, they don't just launch anytime within that 4-hour window when they feel like it. There's one they want to go for to get into that orbital plane. And if weather or something else prevents them, it slips, and usually it will slip like 45 minutes or something like that for the Earth to rotate just enough for them to get like the next slot that they want to get in the next one. You got 2 choices when that happens. You can either get in that plane by going north or going south. One of them will usually be a lower energy trajectory. So that might be the preferred one, but it's just quite possible that they said, oh, this is the one we want to get into, and we're inserting in it. So it seems that that's why it was off. And so the only thing I'm mad about is by not getting the picture, I don't know where I need to look the next time to find out what the framing is. But
yeah, cool. Excellent. Love it. All right, Scott, listen, thank you as always for coming on and bringing us up to date. Very exciting about Figure with their last ever Figure 1 activity, and exciting about Sanctuary getting 140 million or something like that. And
140 million.
140 million in new fund.
Okay, so you read about that. I had to make sure my lips were sealed.
Oh no, it's there. No,
it's there. It's official now. Yeah,
it's official.
Yeah. Yeah. And as Herbert and I discussed, what that means is that they're able to continue to get capital, which means they must be producing results that investors are interested in doing, because investors, they do their due diligence. They don't just throw the money around. It's not. In some cases, it might seem like they are and that they're gambling, but I'm pretty sure they're convinced that. And it's good not just for Sanctuary. It's good for the whole sector.
Sure.
Means there's all of this money out there trying to look for places to park it, and they're saying, hey, this humanoid bot space looks real.
All right. Again, thank you, Scott, and to all of you out there. It's been great talking to you.
Same here. Till next week.